The stars looked the same everywhere in the galaxy, but War Prime Thexitar knew that some spaces between them belonged to the strong, and some to the weak. Today he would take what belonged to the weak and make it his own. His fleet of 12 warships cut through the darkness like silver blades. Each ship carried 500 Krell warriors, their scaled bodies ready for combat, their weapons charged and waiting. The Krell Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in the past century. Humanity's border territories would become number 18. War Prime, we are crossing into their claimed space now, his navigation officer reported. The officer's voice carried the excitement of youth. This would be his first conquest. Thexitar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon. His red scales gleamed under the command lights. He was tall even for a Krell, standing nearly 8 feet in his armor. Scars crossed his face from a dozen battles. Each one was a story of victory. Good, Thexitar said. Let them know we are coming. I want to see how fast they surrender. The communications array broadcast their presence across all frequencies. The Krell had learned that fear worked better than surprise. Let the enemy know death was coming. Let them panic. Let them make mistakes. For several minutes, nothing happened. The fleet moved deeper into human space, passing the invisible line that marked their territory. Thexitar felt satisfaction warm his chest. They were not even responding. The intelligence reports were correct. Humans were weak. Then a message came through. It was not a military transmission. It was automated, simple, and in perfect Krell language. You have entered human territory without authorization. Turn back now, that was all. No threats. No demands, no panic. Just a statement and a warning. Thexitar laughed. The sound echoed across the bridge. His officers joined him, their laughter mixing with his own. Turn back? They had just begun. Send no response, Thexitar ordered. Actions speak louder than words. Set course for the nearest colony world. I want to see their faces when we land. The fleet adjusted its trajectory. The nearest human settlement was a mining colony called New Pittsburgh. Intelligence reports said it had a population of 50,000. Mining operations. Some agriculture. No military bases. It was perfect for a first strike. Velshara, the science officer, studied her displays with a frown. She was younger than most of the command staff, but her mind was sharp. Too sharp, some said. She thought too much instead of acting. War Prime, she said carefully. Should we not wait for their response? Understanding the enemy is wise. I understand them perfectly, Thexitar replied. They are farmers and miners playing at being a spacefaring race. We are warriors. That is all I need to know. Velshara said nothing more, but her frown deepened. She had read the intelligence files carefully. Humans were strange. They had spread across 40 star systems in only 200 years. That was fast, very fast, and they had done it without the advanced technology that most races used. How? The reports did not say. They just noted that humans were there, building, growing, expanding. Always expanding, the fleet traveled for 6 hours. They passed 2 automated cargo ships carrying supplies between human worlds. The ships detected the Krell fleet and immediately changed course, fleeing at maximum speed. More proof of human cowardice. We are approaching New Pittsburgh, the navigation officer announced. The planet is in visual range. The main screen showed a blue and green world. It looked comfortable, rich, worth taking. Scan for defenses, Thexitar ordered. Scanning now, War Prime. A pause. I detect no orbital weapons. No defense satellites. No military ships in the area. What about on the surface? Some cities. Mining operations. Agricultural centers. No military installations that I can detect. Thexitar nodded. As expected. Send a landing force. Take the main city. Make sure they understand that this world now belongs to the Krell Dominion. 3 transport ships detached from the fleet and began their descent. Thexitar watched on the screens as they entered the atmosphere, flames licking their hulls. Beautiful. Then Velshara spoke again. War Prime, I am detecting something unusual. What is it? The colony appears to be evacuating. I am picking up thousands of ships leaving the surface. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, even private vessels. They are all heading away from the planet. Thexitar smiled. They run before we even land. Excellent, we will occupy empty buildings. No fight at all. War Prime, the speed of this evacuation is strange. It is too organized, too fast. These are not panicked people fleeing. This is a planned withdrawal. You worry too much, Velshara. They are running because they know they cannot fight us. That is all. The landing force reached the surface. Reports came back quickly. The main city was indeed abandoned. Power was still running. Lights were on. Machines were still operating in the factories. Food was still warm in some homes. But there were no people. Not one. Secure the city, Thexitar ordered. Establish a command base. Begin scanning for resources. Over the next hour, more reports arrived. The entire planet had been evacuated. 50,000 people had simply left. Mining equipment was still running. Farms were tended by robots. Everything worked. But humanity was gone. Far away, on a space station hidden in an asteroid field, Captain Maria Santos watched her displays. She was a small woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was neat but worn. She had been in the Human Defense Coordination for 30 years. Around her, dozens of other officers monitored screens, tracking the Krell fleet's every move. Every communication. Every action. They have landed on New Pittsburgh, one officer reported. The evacuation is complete. All civilians are safe. Good, Santos said. Her voice was calm, quiet. Begin Phase 2. I want full surveillance on all Krell positions. Monitor their communications. Learn their command structure. Find out who makes decisions and how. Yes, Captain. Another officer spoke up. Captain, should we engage? We have 3 battle groups within range. Santos shook her head. No, let them settle in. Let them think they have won. We need them confident. Confident enemies make mistakes. The officer looked confused but nodded. Santos understood. Young officers always wanted to fight immediately. They had to learn patience. War was not always about shooting first. She pulled up the file on War Prime Thexitar. The Krell commander had an impressive record. 17 conquered systems. Brutal but effective tactics. He liked direct combat. Overwhelming force. Quick victories, Santos smiled slightly. Direct combat was one way to fight. But there were others. Humans had learned many ways over their long, bloody history. Sometimes the best way to win was to make the enemy defeat themselves. Keep monitoring, she said. I want to know everything about them. What they eat. When they sleep. How they think. And most importantly, what they fear. She looked at the star map showing the Krell fleet deep in human territory. They looked like red dots on a blue background. 12 ships. 6,000 warriors. Against humanity's billions, they thought they were hunters. They thought humans were prey. They would learn differently. They would learn that humans did not fight like other species. Humans did not accept defeat. Humans did not surrender their homes. Humans prepared. Humans adapted. And humans always remembered who started the fight. Welcome to human territory, Santos whispered to the screen. We hope you enjoy your stay, however long it lasts. War Prime Thexitar stood in what had been the governor's office on New Pittsburgh. The room was comfortable, designed for humans with their strange need for soft chairs and decorative items. He had removed most of it, replacing it with proper Krell military equipment. 2 weeks had passed since the occupation began. 2 weeks and still no human military response. No counterattack, no negotiations, nothing but silence. It made him uneasy, though he would never admit it to his warriors. Report, he commanded as Velshara entered the office. The science officer carried a data tablet. Her scales looked dull, a sign of stress. War Prime, we have secured 3 planets and established bases on each. Total personnel deployed is 4,000 warriors, but we are experiencing unusual difficulties. What kind of difficulties? Equipment failures, War Prime? Our transport ship Morning Blade lost navigation during a routine supply run yesterday. It nearly flew into the system's star before manual controls were engaged. 3 warriors died when life support failed on Outpost 7, and the water purification system on Base Prime has malfunctioned twice this week. Thexitar waved a clawed hand dismissively. Equipment fails sometimes. We are using these human facilities. Their inferior technology is breaking down. That is what troubles me, War Prime. It is not our equipment failing. It is theirs. The equipment the humans built and maintained. It worked perfectly for them. But now that we are using it, problems occur. You think they sabotage their own facilities? Thexitar considered this. Possible. But we have engineers. They can fix anything these primitive humans can build. We try, War Prime. But every time we fix something, something else breaks. The pattern is too consistent to be natural wear. And there is something else. Velshara tapped her tablet. A holographic display appeared showing movement patterns around one of the bases. Our sensors detect movement in the wilderness areas. Always at the edge of our range. Always brief. Something is out there watching us. Send patrols, find them. Kill them. We have sent 17 patrols, War Prime. 3 have not returned. The others report seeing nothing. But when they return to base, equipment in the area they patrolled experiences failures. It is as if whatever is out there is doing something to our systems. Thexitar felt anger rising in his chest. This was not how conquest worked. The enemy was supposed to fight or surrender. Not hide, not sabotage. Not watch from the shadows like cowards. Double the patrols. Triple them if necessary. I want these ghosts found and eliminated. Velshara bowed and left. Thexitar turned to look out the window at the human city below. It looked peaceful. Almost normal. Robots still tended the parks. Automated systems kept the streets clean. But there were no people. The city was a beautiful shell with nothing inside. Like a trap, he thought. Then pushed the thought away. On a ship orbiting beyond the Krell's sensor range, Captain Santos reviewed the latest reports. Her team had compiled detailed information on every Krell warrior, every ship, every weapon system. The sabotage programs are working well, one officer reported. The Krell have lost 3 ships to navigational errors and countless equipment failures. They are spending more time on repairs than on expansion. Good, Santos said, but do not overdo it. We want them frustrated, not retreating. Not yet. Captain, the observation teams are in position. 73 volunteers are currently within 5 kilometers of Krell positions. They report that the Krell are nervous. Patrol patterns have become erratic. Santos nodded. The observation teams were her idea. Volunteers had stayed behind when the evacuations happened. They wore adaptive camouflage. They carried no weapons. Their job was simple, be seen but never caught. Let the Krell know they were being watched. It was psychological warfare. Humans understood fear better than most species. Not the fear of direct combat, but the fear of the unknown. The fear of being studied. Watched. Hunted by something you could not see. The Krell were warriors. They knew how to fight enemies they could see. But an enemy that only appeared at the edge of vision, then vanished, that was different. That war on the mind. Any word from command? Santos asked. Yes, Captain. Admiral Chen says you have full authorization to proceed to Phase 3 whenever you deem ready. Santos studied the tactical display. The Krell had spread themselves across 3 worlds. They were supply-dependent now. Their ships needed parts. Their warriors needed food. All coming from supply lines that stretched back to Krell space. Supply lines that passed through human territory. Not yet, she said. Let them settle in more. Let them think they are winning. Another week, I think. She pulled up psychological profiles on the Krell command staff. War Prime Thexitar was proud, aggressive, impatient. He would not retreat easily. Good. The longer he stayed, the easier this would become. But Velshara was different. The science officer was smart. Careful. She would see patterns. She might convince Thexitar to withdraw before the trap fully closed. Santos made a note. Velshara would need to survive. Smart enemies who understood humans were valuable. They would tell others. They would spread the word about what happened here. Back on New Pittsburgh, a Krell patrol moved through an abandoned factory complex. 5 warriors, fully armed, scanning for any sign of human presence. Their leader, Squad Captain Reth, kept his weapon ready. This was his 4th patrol this week. Each one felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly. Just wrong. Movement left side, one warrior reported. They all turned, weapons raised, nothing. Just shadows and abandoned machinery. Probably an animal, Reth said, but he did not believe it. There were no animals on this world that registered on their sensors. Nothing living at all except plants and insects. They continued through the factory. Something made Reth look up. For just a moment he thought he saw a figure standing on a catwalk 3 levels above. Human-shaped. Watching. He blinked. Nothing there. Did anyone see that? He asked. See what, Squad Captain? Nothing. Keep moving. But Reth knew what he saw. Or thought he saw. Something was here. Something that did not want to be found but wanted them to know they were not alone. It made his scales itch. The patrol returned to base without incident. But that night the base's main generator failed. Engineers worked through the darkness with emergency lights to fix it. They found nothing wrong. The generator simply would not start until morning. Then it worked perfectly. Velshara compiled her reports in her quarters. The evidence was clear. The humans had not abandoned these worlds. They had evacuated the civilians, yes, but others had stayed. How many? Impossible to say. The humans were too good at hiding, and the equipment failures were not random. They were targeted, designed to waste time and resources, designed to make the Krell feel unsafe in their own bases. She needed to convince War Prime Thexitar to withdraw. This occupation was not working. They were not conquering human territory. They were sitting in human traps waiting for whatever came next. But she knew Thexitar. He would not retreat. Retreat was not the Krell way. Warriors fought. They conquered. They did not run from enemies they had not even seen. Velshara looked at her data one more time. Then she made a decision. She began compiling a personal log, a record of everything that was happening. If things went wrong, if they all died here, someone needed to know the truth. Someone needed to warn the rest of the galaxy about humans. They were not what they appeared to be. They were not weak. They were patient. They were clever. And they were doing something that no species had ever done to the Krell before. They were making the Krell afraid. The supply ship arrived 3 days late. When it docked at the orbital station above New Pittsburgh, War Prime Thexitar personally went to inspect the cargo. What he found made his anger burn hot. Half the food supplies were spoiled. The ammunition was the wrong caliber for Krell weapons. Medical supplies were expired. And worst of all, the replacement parts for their ships were for completely different models. How did this happen? He demanded of the ship's captain. The captain, an older Krell named Mortax, looked exhausted. War Prime, every supply depot we visited gave us the wrong items. The automated systems kept sending us to empty warehouses. Navigation systems malfunctioned 6 times during the journey. We are lucky to be here at all. The humans, Velshara said quietly. She had accompanied Thexitar to the station. They control the shipping networks. They built all the navigation systems, all the supply depot computers. They have access to everything. Thexitar slammed his fist against the bulkhead. Then we stop using their systems. We bring our own supplies from Krell space. We use our own navigation. That will take time, War Prime. And the routes through this region are complex. Human space is full of asteroid fields and unstable wormholes. They know safe paths. We do not. Then we learn. 2 more ships were lost the following week. One to a navigation error that sent it into an asteroid field. Another simply vanished. Its last transmission a confused report about false sensor readings. 60 warriors gone, just gone. The bases on the 3 occupied worlds reported increasing problems. Warriors were on edge. Sensors detected movement constantly, but patrols found nothing. Equipment broke faster than it could be repaired. And now food was running low. Thexitar called a command meeting. All senior officers attended via holographic link. He looked at their faces, saw the doubt there. This was not going according to plan. We are warriors of the Krell Dominion, he said. We have conquered 17 star systems. We will not be defeated by ghosts and broken machines. War Prime, Velshara spoke carefully. Perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal. We can regroup, bring proper supplies, and return with overwhelming force. No! Thexitar's roar echoed across the communication links. We do not retreat. We press forward. If the humans want to hide, we will find them. I want to push deeper into human territory. We find their homeworld. We destroy their leadership. Then this harassment stops. Velshara said nothing, but her expression showed what she thought. This was a mistake. A terrible mistake. The fleet prepared to move. 8 ships remained operational. 4 had been lost to accidents. The remaining 4,000 warriors loaded onto the ships, leaving only token forces on the occupied worlds. They pushed deeper into human space, following navigational data that may or may not be accurate. Every sensor array showed dozens of human ships in the distance, but whenever the Krell moved to intercept, the ships vanished. It was as if humanity was leading them somewhere. Captain Santos watched the Krell fleet move on her tactical display. A smile touched her lips. They took the bait. War Prime Thexitar is doing exactly what we expected. Pride will not let him retreat. Phase 3? Her second-in-command asked. Phase 3, Santos confirmed. Across human territory, thousands of ships began to move. They were not military vessels. They were mining ships, cargo haulers, Civilian transports, personal yachts, anything that could fly. Each one carried volunteers. Each one had been modified in simple but effective ways. Railguns from mining equipment. Kinetic projectiles made from asteroid ore, simple explosives, and in some cases just mass. A ship traveling fast enough was a weapon all by itself. The volunteers knew what they were signing up for. Many would not return, but they were defending their homes, their families, their way of life. That was worth any price. The Krell fleet reached the coordinates they believed were close to a major human world. Instead, they found themselves in an empty region of space. No planets, no stations, nothing but darkness and distant stars. War Prime. Sensors are detecting multiple contacts, the sensor officer reported. Thousands of them. All around us, military ships? No, War Prime. They appear to be civilian vessels. Small craft mostly, but there are thousands of them. They are forming a sphere around our position. Thexitar studied the tactical display. The ships did not move in military formation. They were scattered, disorganized, but there were so many, like insects swarming. A communication came through on all frequencies. A human voice, female, speaking in perfect Krell language. This is Captain Maria Santos of the Human Defense Coordination. You entered our territory without permission. You occupied our worlds. You threatened our people. We asked you to leave. You refused. Now you will learn what it means to fight humanity. One human speaks for her entire species? Thexitar laughed. Send a message to all ships. Prepare to engage. We will swat these insects from the stars. War Prime, Velshara said urgently. We should reconsider. There are too many of them. They are civilians in civilian ships. We are warriors in warships. The outcome is certain. The Krell fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons and missiles launched toward the human swarm. Hundreds of ships exploded, bright flowers of destruction blooming in the darkness. But more ships took their place, always more. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared from behind asteroids. From behind the Krell ships themselves, from every direction. The humans were not trying to destroy the Krell fleet with firepower. They were demonstrating something much more terrifying. They had more bodies than the Krell had ammunition. War Prime ammunition reserves are at 60% and falling, the weapons officer reported. We have destroyed over 500 enemy vessels, but more keep coming. Thexitar watched the tactical display in growing disbelief. The humans were throwing themselves at his fleet like they did not care about dying. What kind of species did this? Then the human ships began doing something new. They started exploding near Krell vessels, not hitting them directly, just exploding nearby. Each explosion created a cloud of debris. Metal fragments. Ship parts. All traveling at high speed, shrapnel screens, Velshara said. They are creating debris fields around us, limiting our mobility. Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of this cloud. But everywhere the Krell ships moved, more human vessels appeared. More explosions. More debris. The space around the fleet was becoming a deadly maze of high-velocity fragments. A proximity alarm blared. A human cargo ship, massive and slow, was accelerating directly toward the Crimson Talon. Destroy it, Thexitar ordered. Weapons fire tore the ship apart, but its momentum carried the wreckage forward. Tons of metal slammed into the Crimson Talon's shields. The shields held, but power levels dropped significantly. 3 more cargo ships began acceleration runs toward different Krell vessels. They are using their own ships as kinetic weapons, Velshara said. War Prime, we cannot sustain this. For every ship we destroy, our ammunition decreases, but they seem to have unlimited numbers. They cannot have unlimited ships. It is impossible. But the sensors said otherwise. The human swarm was growing, not shrinking. Ships arrived constantly from every direction. Small ones, large ones, fast ones, slow ones, all willing to die. A message came through from one of the other Krell ships. War Prime, this is the swift death. Our shields are failing. We are surrounded by debris. We cannot maneuver. The transmission cut off. The swift death's icon on the tactical display went dark. Thexitar felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. Real, cold fear. These humans were insane. They fought without strategy, without formation, without any regard for their own lives. How did you defeat an enemy that did not care about dying? Another message from Captain Santos. You can leave, War Prime Thexitar. Take your warriors. Take your lives. Leave your ships. We will transport you to the border. Or you can stay here forever. Choose now. Thexitar looked at his crew, looked at Velshara's face, saw the hope there, the desperate hope that he would choose correctly. "Never," he said. "Krell do not surrender. All ships maximum firepower. We break through or we die fighting." Velshara closed her eyes. She knew how this would end. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted for 6 more hours. 6 hours of continuous firing. 6 hours of human ships throwing themselves against Krell weapons. 6 hours of watching the inevitable unfold. Velshara kept detailed records even as chaos erupted around her. Someone needed to document this. Someone needed to survive to tell the story. The Crimson Talon shook as another impact hit the weakening shields. Thexitar shouted orders, but there was desperation in his voice now. The mighty War Prime was learning that some enemies could not be beaten by strength alone. "Ammunition at 20%, the weapons officer reported. His voice was hollow, defeated. "War Prime, the Endless Honor, has lost all shields. They are venting atmosphere," communications reported. The Blade of Morning reports critical damage. "They request permission to retreat." "No retreat!" Thexitar roared. But his claws gripped his command chair hard enough to leave marks. Velshara pulled up historical records on her terminal. She had searched through galactic databases for any information about humans in combat. What she found chilled her blood. There were stories. Whispered warnings from species that had encountered humanity. The Vren had tried to claim a human agricultural world 70 years ago. The entire Vren fleet disappeared. No wreckage ever found. Just gone. The Patal had attempted to enslave human colonists 40 years ago. The humans did not just fight back. They tracked the Patal to their homeworld, disabled every ship in orbit, and left one message: "Touch us again, and we will not be merciful." The Zelthian Empire had dismissed humans as irrelevant 10 years ago. Now the Zelthian Empire was asking humans for defense contracts. Something had changed their minds, but records did not say what. How had the intelligence reports missed this? How had the Krell convinced themselves that humans were weak? Because humans wanted them to think that. The realization hit Velshara like a physical blow. Humans did not advertise their strength. They let others think they were soft, weak, easy prey. Then when threatened, they showed their true nature. And their true nature was terrifying. "War Prime," Velshara said quietly. "I have discovered something important about humans." "Not now, Velshara." "War Prime, please. This is critical. I have found historical records. Other species have tried to attack humans before. None succeeded. The humans have a saying, 'Do not mistake patience for weakness.'" Thexitar turned to look at her. His eyes were wild. "What are you saying?" "I am saying we made a terrible mistake. These humans are not farmers and miners who happen to live in space. They are something much more dangerous. They are survivors. Evolution made them that way." She pulled up data on human homeworld, Earth. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. Predators, diseases, ice ages, volcanoes, starvation. Everything that could kill them did kill them. But some always survived. The ones who were smart enough, stubborn enough, vicious enough. So they are survivors. That does not make them warriors. No, War Prime. It makes them something worse. Warriors fight for glory, for honor, for conquest. Survivors fight for existence. There is no limit to what a survivor will do. No sacrifice too great. No tactic too cruel. Because survival is everything. Another impact rocked the ship. Alarms blared across the bridge. "We are down to 10% ammunition," the weapons officer reported. "We have destroyed over 1,500 enemy vessels. But there are still thousands surrounding us. 1,500 ships. 1,500 crews. All dead, all sacrificed. And the humans just kept coming. What kind of species could accept those casualties without flinching?" Thexitar understood now. Too late, but he understood. The humans had not fled in fear. They had evacuated because they knew what was coming. They had removed the weak, the young, the innocent. Then they had sent the warriors. And in human society, everyone could be a warrior when their home was threatened. "Velshara," Thexitar said quietly, "you will survive this. That is an order, War Prime. Someone must tell the Dominion what happened here. Someone must warn them never to attack humans again. You are smart enough to make them listen, so you will live." Velshara felt her throat tighten. How? By accepting their offer. By surrendering. He stood up straight and proud despite everything. "I will not. I am War Prime. I do not surrender. But you will. For the good of our people. War Prime, I cannot. You can. You will. He turned to the communications officer. Open a channel to Captain Santos. Tell her that Science Officer Velshara wishes to accept terms of surrender. Her only. She is to be given safe passage to the border. Guarantee her safety or I will destroy every human ship in range before we die. The message was sent. For long moments, nothing happened. Then a response came. War Prime Thexitar, this is Captain Santos. We accept your terms. Science Officer Velshara will be transported safely to the border. I give you my word as a human. Our word means something to us. Thexitar nodded. Velshara, go now. Tell them what you learned here. Make sure the Dominion understands. Velshara stood. She wanted to say something, to argue, to refuse. But she saw the determination in Thexitar's eyes. He had made his choice. She would honor it by surviving. By learning. By warning others. I will remember you, War Prime. I will remember all of you. Go. Velshara left the bridge. Within minutes, a small human transport docked with the Crimson Talon. She boarded alone. The human pilot said nothing, just nodded respectfully. The transport detached and accelerated away from the battle. On the Crimson Talon, Thexitar watched her go. Then he turned back to his crew. All remaining ships form up. We make one last push. We show these humans that Krell die with honor. Yes, War Prime. The crew responded as one. They did not have much ammunition left. They did not have much power. But they were Krell. They were warriors. If they were going to die here, they would die fighting. The remaining Krell ships formed a tight formation and accelerated toward the thickest part of the human swarm. Weapons fired continuously. Ships exploded. Debris filled space like a deadly fog. But there were always more humans. Always. Captain Santos watched from her command ship as the Krell made their final push. She felt no joy in this. No satisfaction. Just grim determination. Should we offer them another chance to surrender? Her second-in-command asked. Santos shook her head. War Prime Thexitar chose honor over life. We respect that choice. All ships focus fire. Make it quick. The human swarm closed in like a fist. Thousands of ships all converging. The Krell fought well. They died well. But they died. The Crimson Talon was the last ship remaining. Its shields were gone. Its weapons were empty. But it still flew. Still fought with whatever it had left. A message came from the ship. Thexitar's voice calm now. Captain Santos, you fought well. Tell your people they defended their home with honor. I respect that. I die knowing I faced worthy opponents. And I respect you, War Prime Thexitar. You fought for your beliefs. History will remember that. One question before the end. How many? How many humans in total? Santos looked at her displays. At the thousands of ships still surrounding the dying Krell flagship. In this battle? 30,000 volunteers. In reserve, waiting if needed, 5 million more. In our entire territory, ready to defend our homes. 3 billion, a long silence. Then Thexitar's laugh, bitter and amazed. We never had a chance, did we? No, War Prime. You did not. But you could have left. We gave you that choice. Yes, you did. That is something at least. The Crimson Talon's power failed. The ship drifted dark and silent. Human ships surrounded it, ready to fire if it somehow came back to life. But it never did. War Prime Thexitar died on his bridge with his crew as a warrior. But he died learning a lesson that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Humans were not the strongest species. Not the smartest. Not the most advanced. But they were the most determined. The most stubborn. The most willing to sacrifice everything to protect what was theirs. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 6 months after the battle that the galaxy would come to call the Krell lesson, Science Officer Velshara stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was vast, circular with seats for representatives from 200 species. Today, nearly all of them were filled. Everyone wanted to hear what happened in human territory. Velshara had spent the months preparing. She had compiled every piece of data, every recording, every sensor log from the Krell fleet. Now she would present it to the galaxy. Now they would understand. Honored Council, she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. I stand before you as the sole survivor of the Krell incursion into human space. I am here to tell you what we learned. What we paid with 6,000 lives to understand. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, every sensory organ, every form of attention focused on her. We thought humans were weak. Our intelligence said they lacked advanced weapons, lacked military tradition. lacked the warrior spirit necessary to defend territory. We were wrong. Completely, devastatingly wrong. She activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above the council floor. Krell ships, human swarms. The battle that ended the incursion. Humans do not fight like we fight. They do not think like we think. We come from species that evolved as predators, as hunters, as warriors. We have claws, strength, natural weapons. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They are not fast. They are not strong. But they never ever stop. She showed footage of human ships sacrificing themselves. Cargo haulers ramming warships. Mining vessels exploding to create debris fields. Civilian transports flying straight into weapons fire. Over 1,500 human vessels were destroyed in the final battle. 1,500. We destroyed them. We won every individual engagement. But we still lost, because for every ship we destroyed, 2 more appeared. They had more bodies than we had ammunition, more determination than we had strength. A council member from the Vraxian collective raised a tentacle. Surely this was desperation, madness. No rational species accepts such casualties. Velshara looked at the Vraxian. That is what we thought. But it was not madness. It was calculation. Cold logical calculation. The humans knew exactly what they were doing. They removed their civilians first. The evacuation before we even landed was not panic. It was procedure. They had planned for invasion. They had planned for war. And they had planned to win no matter the cost. She showed more data. Communications intercepts. The calm professional voice of Captain Santos. The organized response. The systematic way humans turned every civilian facility into a weapon. They turned their mining equipment into railguns, their cargo ships into kinetic missiles, their farms into poison. Everything in human space is dual purpose. Everything can become a weapon if needed. And they are willing to destroy everything they built, if it means protecting their people. Another council member spoke, this one from the Pathalan Unity. This seems inefficient. Surely they would prefer to preserve their infrastructure. They would. But they prefer survival more. That is the key difference. We fight for glory, for honor, for expansion. Humans fight for survival, and there is nothing they will not sacrifice for that. Velshara paused, letting the words sink in. I have studied human history since my return. Their homeworld is a death trap. Predators everywhere, diseases that kill millions, weather that can freeze or burn, earthquakes, volcanoes, meteor strikes. And through it all, humans survived, not by being stronger than the threats, by being more stubborn. She showed images of Earth, beautiful but deadly. When humans faced predators stronger than them, they invented weapons. When they faced diseases, they invented medicine. When they faced starvation, they invented agriculture. Every problem they solved. Every threat they overcame. And they learned something that most species never need to learn. The chamber waited. They learned that survival requires sacrifice, that protecting the group is more important than individual glory, that sometimes the only way to win is to accept losses that would break other species. She played the final communication from War Prime Thexitar, his voice calm in the face of death, his acknowledgement of defeat, his question about numbers. 3 billion, she said. That is how many humans were ready to fight if needed. Not soldiers. Not trained warriors. Just people willing to defend their homes. 3 billion against our 6,000. We had no chance. We never had a chance. But they still gave us the opportunity to leave. Multiple times. A council member from the Zelkor hierarchy spoke. So the humans are conquerors waiting to happen. We should unite against them before they grow too strong. No, Velshara said sharply. That is exactly the wrong lesson. Humans are not conquerors. They are defenders. Every action they took was defensive. They did not pursue us into Krell space. They did not attack our homeworld. They simply removed us from their territory and let us go. She gestured to herself. I am alive because they honored a promise. War Prime Thexitar negotiated my surrender, and the humans kept their word. They transported me safely to the border. They gave me all my research data. They treated me with respect. That is not the action of conquerors. That is the action of people who want to be left alone. The council chamber filled with murmured conversations. Velshara waited for quiet. I recommend that the Galactic Council officially recognize human territorial boundaries, that we establish formal diplomatic relations, and most importantly, that we never ever cross into human space without invitation. Because if we do, she let the silence stretch. then finished. If we do, we will learn what the Krell learned. That humans are patient until you threaten their home. Then they are relentless, unstoppable, and willing to pay any price to remove the threat. The vote was unanimous. Human territory was formally recognized. Borders were established. Diplomatic channels opened. And a new saying began spreading through the galaxy. No one enters human territory uninvited, unless they do not intend to come back. A year later, Captain Maria Santos retired from the Human Defense Coordination. She moved to a small colony world called New Haven. It was peaceful, quiet, perfect for a woman who had spent too many years preparing for war. She sat on her porch, watching her grandchildren play in the garden. They laughed and ran, innocent of the dangers beyond the sky. That was how it should be. Children should not have to know about war. A young reporter approached asking for an interview. Santos agreed. The reporter was nervous, respectful. She had read about the Krell incident. She had questions. Is it true? The reporter asked. Did humanity really defeat the Krell with mining equipment and civilian ships? Santos smiled. It was a grandmother's smile, warm and kind. We used what we had. Humans are good at that, making do, adapting, surviving. But the casualties, 1,500 ships, all those people who died. Santos's smile faded. War requires sacrifice. Those volunteers knew the risks. They chose to defend their homes anyway. We honor their memory by making sure their sacrifice meant something. And if someone else invades, another species? Santos looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the blue, beyond the stars, other species were learning the same lesson the Krell learned. Some would learn it quickly, through diplomacy and reason. Others would learn it the hard way. Then we do what we always do, Santos said quietly. We evacuate the civilians. We prepare the defenses. We turn everything we have into weapons. And we make sure that anyone who threatens our homes understands the cost of that choice. But war is terrible. Yes, war is terrible. That is why we avoid it when possible. That is why we warn others. Turn back, leave us alone. We prefer visitors to knock first. It is just polite. Santos stood up, signaling the interview was over. The reporter thanked her and left. Santos returned to watching her grandchildren play. A shuttle passed overhead, leaving a contrail across the blue sky. A cargo ship, probably, carrying goods between colonies, or maybe a patrol ship keeping watch. It did not matter. Humanity had learned to reach the stars. They had learned to build new homes on distant worlds, but they had never forgotten the lessons of Earth, never forgotten what it took to survive, never forgotten that sometimes the only way to have peace was to be ready for war. And they were ready, always ready. Every colony had evacuation plans. Every civilian had basic defense training. Every system had hidden weapons, backup plans, volunteers willing to fight, because humanity remembered. They remembered every predator that hunted them, every disease that tried to kill them, every disaster that threatened their existence. And they remembered that survival was not about being strong. It was about being stubborn enough to outlast any threat. Santos smiled again, watching the children laugh. They would grow up in a safer galaxy. A galaxy where other species knew better than to threaten human worlds. Where diplomacy worked because everyone understood the alternative. That was worth 1,500 ships. Worth 6,000 Krell lives. Worth the months of planning and preparation. Worth everything it took to send a message that echoed across the stars. Leave humanity alone and they would be your friend. Trade partners, allies, good neighbors, but threaten their homes, threaten their children, threaten their existence? Then you would learn what it meant to fight a species that survived by never giving up, never surrendering, never accepting defeat.